Hello and welcome back to Deadfall Adventures. This is Enchanted, and today we'll be going through the third to last level. Let's begin, shall we? As we load up the Mayan city. I really like the way this city looks. It's a really cool level when it comes to its visual design, and the fact that it feels like an actual city. I quite like the scope of it and things. There's like this little vista you get as you're coming out as well.
It's magnificent. Maybe we'll end up in the history books.
Or in an early grave.
If this really is Chivalba, its guardians won't be easy to overcome. According to legend, the last Ajor, the last king of the cities surrounding Chivalba, was commanded by Hunkame and Vukulkame to guard its entrance.
Those guys again? Wait, the rulers of this city? So they must be the brothers who forged the heart of Atlantis.
Do you want to hear the end of the story or not?
Sorry, go on.
The king betrayed the gods and tried to steal the heart. When he entered Chivalba, Vukulkame took his life, eating his inner organs one by one and finally taking possession of his body.
I quite like the city overall. It's got a nice visual to it, with a combination of the encroaching plant life and the original ruins. And it's got a few treasures scattered around in different huts and houses and things that otherwise don't really have much of a purpose except to, well, fill out the fact that this is an actual city. I quite like that because it's a good way of kind of keeping you in the mindset of, yes, this isn't just like a corridor we're fighting enemies in, it's an actual, it used to be a city, so all these houses used to be houses, used to exist for people to live in. It does a good job getting that across, I think. Of course we're locked in, so let's unlock ourselves with the switch. Because otherwise a lot of the houses might be easily overlooked, so the fact that they hide a lot of treasures in them makes them feel more relevant to the setting, and it helps the whole idea of this being a city really take hold in your mind, because you see all these like optional rooms and buildings and little cubby holes and things. This is kind of an annoying room.
What now?
Because now we need to actually shoot these to get them off the pads, but both of them are full of scarabs. Which means they're annoying, or spiders, whatever they're supposed to be, is beetle things, which makes them really annoying to deal with, because you have to shoot all the scarabs, and then you can do the next one, otherwise you just get overrun by scarabs, and that's really annoying, because they always hurt you, of course. But at least they don't last long, they're just an irritation if one of them escapes the iron sights.
I'm just glad these guys aren't alive.
Famous last words.
I quite like these guys. But for now, let's deal with these ones, though. Oh, these two sync up quite nicely, didn't they? I always like the visual thing of the light turning them bright gold as well. It's a nice kind of way of showing that they're at the maximum weaknesses, but also giving kind of a mythological feeling to it. Instead of just turning black and burning like you'd expect them to, they go completely gold and start shining with the light you're viewing upon them. Here, of course, we have a bit of a thing to do. We need to shine light on these two mirrors, so I make them absorb it, so they can shoot it at the main pad in the middle, but we have a limited time frame to do it in. Because otherwise the other one will go out, so we have to just do it quickly and get them both lit. There we are. Now the treasures that are upcoming are a little bit cheeky, and I kind of like them for that. First of all, one that's a little bit out of the way, and then one that's in a kind of tricksy position.
I'm sure this is the right path. We have to find a way around that gate.
especially given what this game has taught us about how the mechanics work so far, and how to anticipate certain traps and things. It kind of plays with expectations a little bit. First of all, around here, we can always just drop down onto this, but I might as well just take the stairs. There's another path of life treasure down that little golden grotto. And across this bridge there's actually a nice little area too, that's only really there to get some like special ammo and things, like to get a new gun and things like that. Which is nice to have, of course. But it's also just here to help get the point across that this is a city, so it has a lot of little places that you don't need to come to that were part of the original design of the town. Like, people used to live here and use these bridges to get around and things.
I don't like this.
These enemies are pretty cool, but they're a little bit annoying too, because they do a lot of damage if you get right up in your grill. They can kill you very quickly if they get too close. And they have a lot of reach as well. As you can see, even when you're imbuing them with as much light as you can, they still take quite a lot of punishment. They're very dangerous if you don't know what's coming. This is the cheeky one, by the way, because you may have thought, oh, this is going to collapse, so let's kind of hang back and wait for it to collapse and run in for the treasure. But if you do that, the treasure gets crushed by the thing, and you have to reload the checkpoint. So in that case, you actually have to go against your prior instincts and just run straight into it, grab the treasure and run before the ceiling collapses upon you. Which is kind of fun, because before, with the collapsing ceiling traps, you tended to want to let the ceiling collapse first. So it's like a cute way of playing with what you've learned so far. This puzzle gave me a lot of trouble, so I cut a lot of messing around out. Because I was being an idiot, basically. Now let's just upgrade something first. That feels a bit better. This was a mistake I made. I didn't pay enough attention to what the notepad was actually saying. So I didn't quite get how this part of the puzzle... I'd forgotten how this part of the puzzle kind of worked. And of course now we're being beset by monsters, so... There we are. I like this gun because it reloads really quickly compared to the actual pistols. But yeah, this is the problem. You need to put the one of the skulls on this statue here. But I screwed up and used the wrong skull. That was the entire thing. You have to use the bear skull and not the kingly skull. As I just realised when rereading that notebook entry, that's showing us use the bear skull, the skull of the peasant, not the skull of the Kukame, you fool. So let's go back and sort them out, shall we? Give the king back his skull and grab the peasant's skull instead. There we go. I like that zombie tries to attack you as well. That's kind of fun. That it kind of like notices its head missing and goes, hey, 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 hey. I thought that was quite cute visually. They could have just spawned these guys, but they gave more personality than that, and I always quite like when this game does that, because it does a good job of doing that, in my opinion, of giving itself a bit of personality. It gives it a bit of charm that otherwise it would lack. So let's now put the white skull on that right hand thing, push the pressure plate, and actually, there we are. Get through here. That zombie actually did us quite a favour, because now we can get in here. There's a couple of treasures upcoming as well that I quite like, because they're very atmospheric. We'll see that in a second. First of all though, let's go to the left for a different one. This area does a pretty good job with the whole city thing as well, because it's all kind of, there's a bunch of little like cubbies that you don't need to go to, and areas that are quite like, surprisingly extensive for how little actually happens there. Of course here we need to light that, which releases this guy. Thank goodness that we have a strong weapon to take him out with. Because the light on its own would not have helped there. There's a very limited distance we have. We need to get up here fairly quickly because otherwise these arrows will fire, as you just heard. So that was a relatively dull treasure, but now we have a really atmospheric one coming up on the right hand side of the area. Which I quite like because of how it presents itself. So this is kind of temple area over here on the right that's kind of completely collapsed that we need to crouch to get into. And of course the treasures are being held by zombies. Kind of like this is, it teases the idea of zombies coming after you, but it doesn't actually deliver on it, so it's kind of atmospheric. It just kind of gives the idea that this area doesn't want you taking these treasures from it. But at the same time, there's not really anything. It's kind of messing with your head a little bit, and that's always kind of fun. It's do a good job building a bit of atmosphere, given that there will be a fight coming up in a minute. I kind of like those two treasures for that reason. They've got atmosphere to them, even if not really much of a puzzle. Because you're kind of expecting it as well to spawn the monsters, so it's kind of there. They've got you a little bit on edge with that part. Of course, these flaming statues on the left and right are actually quite useful. If you can get them caught in the fire, they will go instantly gold, which is very nice. The pistol, even the strongest ones, really aren't very good at breaking these shields though. They take a while to do so. You really want a machine gun for these things, although it's, as you can see, it's possible to deal with them without. It's just a bit annoying. There we are.
One hell of a fight.
The sound effect when they're bursting into light as well actually reminds me a little bit, I'm taking damage too, it reminds me a little bit of the monsters from the Scooby-Doo movie. That little kind of pop, 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 pop kind of a thing. And here we have to just press in this brick to retract the trap. It took me a while to realise that. Didn't even notice the brick pop out the first time, so it took me a while to figure out how to solve that puzzle. I may have had to look it up as well, I've forgotten. I think I did though. And of course, right across the courtyard here, before this puzzle is solved, we have a different one to do. Not really a puzzle, just dodge the spike traps. Get to whatever the spikes. And this of course will spawn some more enemies too. But something funny will happen, and I quite like this bit. I kinda like that the light thing actually makes them drop their gun in pain, and then they run after you. And fall right into the bottomless pit because they're idiots. Well, not bottomless pit, it's got a bottom to it, it's the spike pit, you know what I mean.
We have to balance them out. Try finding the right order of pushing them.
I quite like that with that one guy that just fell right in the pit because he was an idiot. Didn't see what was going on. He could have just stayed there, grabbed his gun again and just kept shooting, but he didn't. That was entirely his fault. And this one's a very obvious puzzle, just solve the order. Follow the order in the notebook. And then we've got it. Kind of like what comes after though.
That must be one of the Guardians. We have to head to the statue. Ah!
This guy doesn't look too happy to see us.
I think we just found one of the Guardians. I can't tell though if this is Hunkame or Rukukame.
Getting his name right's probably the least of our worries.
Let's just say he's Hunkame because he comes first, and that's the order the names have always given in, so it just makes it easier that way. But yeah, Hunkame serves as our boss fight for this level. Not really much of a boss, but it's an interesting... It's a bit of a gimmick, really, more than anything else. But it's visually interesting with the flame walls keeping you into the pit and everything like that. It's a fairly basic fight as far as things go. You just kill the enemies, and then when the flames finally go away, well, then you disperse them with light and with a few shots, and then quickly just get to a switch and press it before he revitalizes himself. You only really need to hit him a little bit to get him to disappear after you've lit him up. And of course, every time we go back into the central area, this happens again. And of course, rule of 3. There are 3 switches, 3 waves of zombies, and 3 times to light up Hunkame rather. Even I'm forgetting the order I'm giving them. I quite like the designs of the Kame, so they're kind of neat looking. With like the very kind of visually, they kind of resembling the, for example, a headdress that the king of the civilization wears, like the one from the puzzle earlier when we were getting his crown. And he was a kind of decoy skull for that one puzzle that got me stuck with it. But it's kind of like it's actually like a statue. It's not really their face. It's not like a horror situation. They're just wearing the same helmet. But it's a nice visual parallel, though. Given the idea that Hun and Vukub Kame kind of took the bodies of the kings. At least Vukub did, anyway. Don't know what Hun's doing. By the way, of course, we end up fighting the people that created the heart, anyway. And that was just me backing into the fire because I'm an idiot. It's very easy to accidentally back into the fire in this area. Of course, the last switch is all on the other side of the area, really. So let's get over there, shall we? And of course, he hits pretty hard as well, so if you don't manage to shine enough light on him, you're kind of in a bit of trouble there. But it's not that difficult to dispatch, it's a fairly basic fight.
We should be safe now.
So let's just press this switch. The switch doesn't really... We're not required to advance in the game, but that switch unlocks 2 treasures that we're going to pick up now in this arena. It's just opened a couple of doors for us, like this one over here. I mean, it's kind of easy to miss that switch, so these treasures can be easy to miss as well. But happily, we've actually given the map for this one, so we can actually see on the map that the treasures are in this area, if we were bothered to look, if we needed to look at it to find out. So that's kind of a good way of telling us, by the way, there's something else to do in this boss fight arena before you move on, because after this point it kind of, you can't go back after you leave this arena, for reasons you'll see in a minute. Of course, this one's a little bit trickier to find, because it's through this little back area. Not nearly as annoying as one of the mines. That jumping puzzle was atrocious. So let's move on, shall we? Past the stewardship of Hunkame to the actual, like, central part of the city. Of course, the reason we can't go back is because this is the drop. As is this.
Automate, look at this! The legend of the last Ajor says he stalked the city he once ruled in the deep of the night, murdering his subjects, men, women and children alike, until finally the city lay deserted. the lifeless outskirts of the City of Death, populated only by the few unfortunate souls condemned to help the dead king guard its entrance.
And as we know, he guards it to this very day. I guess Alvarez didn't stand a chance.
Not if he didn't know how to read these symbols. They say something about a flame burning the bonds that hold the servant. The servant being the undead king, probably.
Well, we know. Let's just hope we don't end up like Alvarez and his men.
This puzzle takes me a little bit because it's a little like it's not just shining the light on the thing. You have to kind of aim it. So this is something it took me a bit to figure out. I can't remember if you shined it on the middle thing first or shined it on the big switches first, but it's like, because from that diagram it looks like it's meant to just shine from this spot and then go from there, but it's not really the way it works. The light doesn't have to come from over here, that's very misleading. The light actually needs to come from directly across the crystal from these big blue ones on the wall to actually do anything to them, as I discover completely by accident in a few seconds. Really, there's a chain on that side of the pit as well. It's like there's not really much point in that chain really being there. It doesn't really seem to serve much purpose. It's just there for visual texture change. Quite a little things like this destroys the sarcophagus at the back as well. There we go. That's how I figured it out. Accidentally shone the light through it. And that's how you actually make these happen. But annoyingly, this one takes a while to actually do it. It doesn't really like... This last one seems to have a lot of trouble for some reason. I don't know why it's not quite registering what I'm trying to make it do, given the others did it instantly. But it won't take too much longer for it to comply. I just needed to give it a little time, I think, to warm up. There we go.
Now we find out if that fire story was meant metaphorically.
And here was the king himself. So again, light through the crystal.
Genius! You're a regular little Einstein, aren't you?
Glad you approve.
I mean, from what we're given, it seems as though that first boss fight is actually with Kame, given the whole he ate the body of the king to get his body for himself, and then you have to burn the body of the king to release it. I think that's probably what's going on there. I may have just misremembered things there, but the game doesn't really give you enough to go on to really say for certain. Because it doesn't really outright say, oh, this one's Kame or this one's Kame. It just, even the characters don't really seem to care. They just kind of go, well, it's one of the two, so let's just kill it. Then again, I think the characters might just be intellectually lazy, but there you go. So we're actually coming up to the end of the level now as well. Just a few more set pieces to go, pretty much. This is kind of cheeky. Of course, if we just proceed here, we'll get smushed and spiked. So let's not do that, shall we? We have to figure out a way to disarm that trap. What better way than with our usual gold switch? Our BFFs. There we go, trap disarmed. The game's told us well on how to search for those gold panels. They're just making it harder and harder to find the switch that disarms the trap. And that's fine, because it's late game now. It's meant to be a bit tricky to work out how to get things. That's just pacing. Here we just have 2 more treasures to pick up. And then here I actually had to splice the new part of the video in because this next fight coming up gave me so much trouble. Because it has the mechanic that was in the previous game, level rather, that it's easy to get stuck in. And also it's just generally a difficult fight. But of course we can't actually get anything new yet, but we have all the treasures in this level now. We just need 3 more of each of the types. And wouldn't you know, the next level has exactly 3 treasures of each type in it. Kind of like the way that's splits up. But here's the new part of the video. And I still died a bunch of times in this fight because it's a difficult fight.
Come and face me! You destroyed my wall, and for that I will bury you and your woman here in this godforsaken jungle.
Hey, we actually get closure on the Russian guy. I'd completely forgotten about this until I actually realised who that was. I think in my brain, when I first played the game, I didn't register it as the Russian because he sounded a lot like the, like, Stein or whatever his name is, the, like, the Russian, the German sidekick to the main villain in this game. So I just kind of, I think in my head, he got a bit mixed up with that character. So I just thought he was that guy. Wasn't paying enough attention, clearly. So I thought that the Russian just didn't get any real kind of, like, closure, but we do. This is where we actually deal with him. First, let's take out all of his minions, because he doesn't actually move from in front of that gate. But we want to take out all of his guys, because if we don't, the next part of the fight will be a huge pain. And of course, he has more health than everyone else as well, so we have to just keep shooting him over and over and over and over and over again. But luckily, again, he doesn't move, so that's fairly simple to actually do. But first, I'm just going to make sure all of his henchmen are dead. Because again, otherwise it's a bit of a pain to deal with. So let's just finish him off now by loading him full of ammo. Fairly underwhelming boss fight, but that's because it's not really the main fight. This is.
Stop, you filthy coward!
Yep, a bunch of zombies now flooding in, and we need to use this searchlight to take them out. Problem, of course, the mirror, I mean, but problem, of course, these mirrors you can get stuck to. The one time I beat this fight before this run, I got stuck to the mirror and couldn't progress to the checkpoint, which really annoyed me. And then every other time after this, I just kept dying over and over and over and over again, because these guys can very easily swarm you, because of how many there ends up being, and you have to keep looking away from them to light up those panels here. So you have to kind of like balance between blasting them with a light and blasting the panels, because otherwise you'll start getting attacked from behind by a zombie, like it's currently happening right now. So of course, to avoid getting stuck to the thing, and to avoid that happening as well, I kind of, as you can see there were 3 of them on me right there. I kind of stopped breaking away from the searchlight every now and then, just to A, make sure I'm not stuck to it, and B, get away from the zombies surrounding me. Happily though, generally they come from the same direction as the next panel in the sequence, so now they're all really mostly coming from the left. But they also come from behind that gate as well, so there'll be some coming from the front as well, and it's really easy to get very badly flanked here. Then again, every now and then I'm kind of going back to the flashlight and pistol, because at least that way I have mobility and get away from them. And use a bit of grenades to try and light them up, literally as well, but it's not really doing the lighting parts like I thought it would. Because it turns out the grenades don't actually give any kind of light out, like I thought they did in that one tomb fight. It was just that they happened to be wandering into the light, or getting blasted into the light by the grenade, with the room with the skylights. That was me learning that the hard way, but grenades aren't much help here. But yeah, these guys are also infinite until we hit that last switch, so let's just kind of do that while these guys are dancing in this light, shall we? And just kind of get this lit up and then just move before we get stabbed to death. Like this. Luckily there's not many left now, I think we're pretty much done with this fight. It's the most frustrating fight because of the whole ease of getting stuck on that platform thing. But now we're done, so let's finally move on to the end of the level, shall we? So upcoming level is the penultimate level of the whole game. So second to last one.
As we approached the temple, we knew if there had ever been a time for turning back, then it was gone now. Blinded by the thrill of the chase, we'd failed to take even a moment to talk about what we'd do if we got the heart back from Hagen. Would we try to find the third fragment, or just destroy it?
Mr. Quarterman, welcome to the party! As much as I'd like to...
I'm getting rather tired of his speeches.
I know exactly what you mean.
Shoot them!
Shoot them! Wipe them up!
Into the fire, Mr. Quarterman! Into the fire!
Kinda like that part because it kinda echoes my sentiments a bit as well with getting tired of his speeches. So I'll see you next time as we take care of the Mayan temple. Goodbye.